Okay, so Nancy, our guest, I'm told, is here to join with us, and he is a remarkable young man. I don't know, do you remember when a couple of years ago at the Denim and Diamonds, when you guys were honoring Richard Schiff? Do you remember that?
From the Good Doctor.
From the Good Doctor, and Richard, and from the West Wing. Hi, George.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, George.
And Nancy's with us too, George. And I'm just telling a story on you, George, that we were at this Denim and Diamonds banquet, and Richard Schiff was being given an award, and the evening had gone, shall we say, a little bit long, and Richard Schiff was the last honoree, being like, big stuff. And he was introduced by, oh gosh, now I'm gonna have a senior moment and forget, who the guy from West Wing played the president, Nancy, help me.
Gary Cole.
Martin Sheen.
Oh, Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen.
Right.
Gary Cole was there too and had gotten up, but Martin Sheen got up and introduced him. It was a big, big deal, y'all. And Richard Schiff got up to do his speech, and he had, I'm not kidding you, loose leaf paper, a fistful of it, that was his speech. And he was like, I just wrote a couple of notes to share with you. And we were all like, we're going to be here until the wee hours of the morning with Richard Schiff. But it's Richard Schiff. We don't care, right? And he started to talk, and he got emotional, and he was going on, and he was like, and he goes, and I want to talk about this young actor who came up to me and said, I have this show and I'm taking it to the Edinburgh Festival, and this young actor, and he went on and on and on about this young actor who had inspired him, who was so amazing. And I was like, he's talking about George. He's talking about George. And I was sitting there with Rachel Bird, and both of us were like trying to text you and say, George, Richard Schiff is on stage talking about you. It was so exciting. But that's who he was talking about, because George is inspirational. He really is. And George does a lot of amazing things. And when you have Richard Schiff waxing poetic about you, George, I think that's a sign that you're doing good stuff.
And I was honored that he actually came to my show, and he brought his son with him.
Yeah. And I think that's part of why he was talking about you, because he's pretty impressed with you. So, George, tell our audience a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for the introduction there, Shannon. I'm honored to be doing my third consecutive appearance on Autism-live. It's become like an annual tradition.
Yes, we love it. We love having you here.
So my one-man show is called Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Asperger's. I started performing it in 2017. I've done Hollywood Fringe, North Hollywood Fringe, Edinburgh Fringe, New York City. I went back and did it in my first home state of Virginia. And in 1 hour, you laugh, you cry, you learn a lot about Asperger's, and you get from myself personally a firsthand account of what it was like to grow up on the autism spectrum.
How long have you been performing this, George?
Well, I started writing and developing it in 2016, and it had its world premiere at the 2017 Hollywood Fringe Festival in June. So we're going on 3 years next month.
Okay, great. And so it's based on your life experience. Does it start when you're a young man, a young boy?
Yes, it does. I open up the show with a song, because I'm also a singer, and one of my life's dreams was to be on American Idol. So I open it up as if I'm on American Idol singing the song. And then I go, and I was going to share my story with the millions of viewers at home, but instead I'm going to share it with all of you. And then we go right back to the young version of me who couldn't say complete sentences. And we just take the story from there. Because there was a period, if it wasn't for Disney movies, I wouldn't have started talking, because my parents kept showing me these Disney movies and I couldn't talk in full sentences. I could just say Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and that's all I could say. It was
not amazing.
It was nonsensical, but I could at least say it.
Yeah, right. No, and that's something. And for all the people who are watching, that just gives everybody so much hope, just to know that there was a time when that was all you could say, and now look at all that you're able to do. That's a very hopeful thing. George, I don't know that if I've ever asked you this before. Did you ever end up auditioning for American Idol?
I auditioned for the show 9 times.
Well, you covered that then. It's a tough show to get into.
I did it 6 times when I was a teenager. I did it once at 16 and once at 17 when I had to drag my mom kicking and screaming because of parent and legal guardian. And then I saved up my money and I traveled around the country and I auditioned 4 times, determined not to take no for an answer. Didn't
Yeah.
work out, but then I walked away from it for 7 years. I moved to LA. I did other things, and then I went back to it when I was 25 and figured, why don't I give it a try now? And I didn't make it, but I got a call back. So I thought, oh, this is it. I'm finally going to get on the show. This is my big break. But then I ended up just getting a call back, and it didn't go any further than that. And then I did it 2 more times, but now I'm 31 and I'm too old. So
Isn't that crazy? I don't think people realize, because when we watch American Idol, it looks like everyone who shows up gets in the room.
oh yeah,
And that,
when I was in high school, the judges were Simon, Paula, and Randy, the original 3.
Yeah.
And it made it look like on TV, oh, you just go to the audition and you walk right in and meet them. And it's like, no, they have thousands of singers come to these cattle call auditions and they only pick hundreds. I used to jokingly say you have a greater chance of getting into Harvard than you do getting on that show.
Mhm.
yeah. And to be honest, a lot of times they will pick people who are truly horrible, right, to go in. And then they will pick people who are both good and have a story that they're interested in. And in the early days of Idol, I think, there was nobody that was there that had a story like what you had. Then James Durbin made a little bit of an inroad. I got to say, George, I feel bad because I feel like if you had gone in during the Katy Perry years, that you would have gotten in.
Well,
do you feel that?
I did try during Katy Perry's first year, but it's the thing about me, and I'm man enough to know this about myself as a singer. I'm good. I'm not great, and they tend to want like greatness, and I'm good, but I'm not like great. So, but
Well, good for you for being able to like take a look at that. So
Excuse
George,
the barking dog.
and we actually didn't hear it, Nancy. I got to be honest, we didn't even hear it. Oh, now I hear it. Okay, now I hear it. There we go.
Where I live.
Yeah.
So.
I have a dog that will bark at her barking dogs. That will be super fun. But George, I gotta say, you have been tearing it up recently. You've had some work in the mainstream. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've been doing.
Yes, I was recently a guest star on NCIS Los Angeles. And
Good for you.
That was such an honor. And I shot the episode in October and the episode aired in November. It was my first guest starring role. I got my own name and my own title card and the opening credits of the show, which was
That's fantastic.
And it was a nice momentum I had going there in the fall because I also did my first independent feature film called Pencil Town, where I acted opposite William Moseley, who is Peter in the Chronicles of Narnia movies. And I acted opposite Paul Dooley, who I got personally to play my grandfather in the movie.
Wow. And are we able to see that movie yet?
Well, it's an independent feature film. So right now, everything is wrapped in post-production and the film's ready to go. We were going to have a screening in April, but then this happened.
Yeah.
And
this happened.
So hopefully we'll get a distributor soon. It's such a beautiful story. I play an autistic employee at the pencil factory who William Moseley, the main character, befriends in the movie, and it's such a beautiful friendship.
Is it a funny movie?
There's definitely moments of comedy in it. There's definitely moments of drama. Paul Dooley said in a behind-the-scenes featurette that we shot that it's very much like a modern-day Frank Capra movie.
Oh, how nice.
It's such a slice of life. There's moments of drama. There's moments of comedy. It's such a beautiful story. I can't wait for the world to see it.
Great.
Yay.
Well, George,
did you have a question, Nancy?
Take us back to how you have so many accomplishments and achievements. And then you were talking about when you were a young boy that you could only utter a few words and couldn't even put together complete sentences. Take us back to how your trajectory of how this all happened. I mean, what your journey was like.
Well, I was the last out of 4 children. I have 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. So my mother could sense very early on that something was different about me because I wasn't developing at the same rapid pace that neurotypical children usually develop. I wasn't making eye contact, and I wasn't like interacting with my mom like, how big is the baby, and you go this big. I wasn't doing any of that with my mother. And so I was very lucky in my life. I had a great mother who was very hands-on, and she made sure that I went to different therapists, psychologists, doctors. I mean, she was very on it, and I did get a lot of social training. So my mother really did take the reins on and worked with me to make me the high functioning adult that I am today.
And how do you feel about that? You know, sometimes we have self-advocates on that are older and they are not in love with the therapies that they got when they were a kid.
I mean, I understand. I understand where that comes from, because sometimes, unfortunately, in today's society, sometimes therapy is done for good, and sometimes therapy is done more harm than it has good. Like you look at gay youth in America and conversion therapy, and that was something that was, you know, more harm than it was good. But my I was so oblivious to it as a child. I was so aloof to it that I legitimately thought that this was a thing that regular kids did.
Wonderful.
I was so aloof to it, and I was so oblivious to it, and I wouldn't be the high functioning adult. And I can't say that it was completely in the hands of the therapists that I saw over the years. It was also my mother and my environment that I grew up in. So I can't just say that it was all because of the therapist. It was also because of my mother.
Well, and because of you, George. I mean, you know, when all is said and done, you're the person who did the work. I mean, I'm all for giving a shout out to the moms and to the therapists, but you also did the work. It was important to you and you did it.
Well, music and movies and television are my life. I am an actor. I am a singer. I am a writer. And if it wasn't for music, movies, and television, if it wasn't for entertainment, I wouldn't have started talking. So that was my way of connecting with the world.
Right. And when did you first start performing, doing music and acting?
Well, my family was actually very involved with a local theater company called the Westmoreland Players in Virginia, and they did a lot of plays with them in the 90s when my family was still living in Virginia. So Oliver was the first time that I was ever on stage when I was 6 years old.
So do you remember that?
I remember parts of it. I mean, I was in the ensemble, and so I would be a part of the kids playing Ring Around the Rosie, Pockets Full of Posies, Ashes, Ashes, We All Fall Down. Like I was I was on stage with my mom most of the time, and it was basically like I was in the ensemble and I was, you know, on stage for all the big town moments in Oliver.
But it was a beginning.
It
was a beginning that has led to a lifelong passion for you.
And then I didn't do any more theater for the rest of the 90s. But then when I moved to Pennsylvania in 2000, I went to middle school in the fall of 2000. And by the spring of 2001, I was in Fiddler on the Roof in the ensemble. And it was just nonstop with school theater productions, church productions, summer productions, I didn't have parents in the industry. So I made the most with the resources that I had. And any opportunity there was to perform, I was there.
What did you love about it, George?
I just got to, I mean, when I was younger, obviously I don't feel this way now when I was 31, but at 31, but when I was younger, I did used to think of acting as I can be anybody but myself, because obviously when I got to 6th grade, that was when I was put in a class with children that were more severely autistic than I was, because my public school district didn't know what to do with me. And you have to keep in mind, in the 90s and the early 2000s, autism awareness was still in its infancy. And so my school district, my public school district in Pennsylvania was like, well, he's on the spectrum. Even though he's high functioning, we should really put him here, because even though he's more high functioning than these children, he'll struggle if we mainstream him. And so unfortunately, that's where I was placed for 2 years before I finally got out. And I didn't want to be myself at that point. So acting for me was like an escape, because I I could pretend to be somebody else who wasn't myself.
How did you and your mom get you out of the special day class?
Well, they were going to wait until I was in high school, but I was so miserable there. I could have gotten out after 6th grade, but the problem was I had already made friends by the end of my 6th grade year who I didn't want to leave. But I couldn't go to that middle school as a regular student because that wasn't in my district. So it was either I leave the school and go back to the middle school in my district, or I stay, but I have to stay under the special ed class. So I I sucked it up and I went back in 7th grade to do the same thing, stay in the special ed class, to still be around my friends. But then after 7th grade, I was like, okay, enough's enough. I have to get out of this. And so I got out and I went back to my own middle school for 8th grade. And
Was that hard?
Yeah.
I talk about this in my show. Actually, it was really hard because being a young teenager who wasn't in touch with his sexuality yet and wasn't aware of it because I'm not straight, and I was called every name in the book, to my face and behind my back. You name it, I was called it. So 8th grade was really, really rough.
I'm so
How
sorry.
did you cope with that? How did you survive that time?
I had to survive it. There wasn't really any other choice. Homeschooling wasn't going to be an option for me, and I had to face it every day, and it wasn't easy. It was, some days were tougher than others. Luckily, I had a production I was doing that year, Bye Bye Birdie, that kept me getting out of bed every morning, just so that way I could survive school and go to rehearsal every day after school. And there were
George,
really rough times, but I made it through.
did your mom know that you were being bullied? And did your mom know at that time that you were gay?
Well, I personally don't identify as gay. For me, my personal
Forgive me.
No, it's okay. I personally identify as queer just because my sexuality is a little more non-binary, because I was attracted to women at the time, and I'm not opposed to being with a woman. I didn't fall for my first guy until I was 27 years old, but unfortunately, a lot of kids, go through the whole process of being labeled gay or assumed to be gay. And my mother was aware of it, but unfortunately, the problem with public middle schools at the time was, unless you were physically bullied, the public school system couldn't really do anything to protect you, because you could report the kids calling you names, but then if you put those kids in front of the principal, of course they're going to deny it. And nobody had phones back then that recorded things. So you were kind of on your own, unfortunately.
What an amazing story that you have. And I love the fact that you are being a storyteller and telling that story in the medium that you enjoy, theater. That's such a wonderful thing. Do you think that when this is all over that you will continue to do the Magic 8 Ball, or are there plans for the Magic 8 Ball?
Well, for right now, we don't have any plans at the moment for Magic 8 Ball, but I'm actually writing a brand new show.
Okay.
It's been 3 years doing Magic 8 Ball. I have a lot more I want to say. I'm still in the writing and developing process, so no official announcement yet, but I'm gonna talk about dating and sex and what that's like from an autistic adult perspective.
Great.
Love it.
And
very much needed, I think, today, to get that perspective.
And luckily, we've had the floodgates open up for us with the disabled and queer stories, because there's a guy named Ryan O'Connell who has a show on Netflix called Special, which is about a gay man with cerebral palsy. And so I feel like now is the time for more of those disabled and queer stories. So I would like to toss my hat into that arena and tell my stories and my experiences from dating and sex and what that's like as an autistic adult. So,
well, I love that. Nancy and I will love to hear about that, so we can come and support you when you're
going to be very bold, and it's not going to be for everybody. So
well, that's okay. I look forward to it.
It's going to be an adults only show.
There we go. There we go. So, George, this time that we live in has been very challenging for a lot of people for a lot of different ways. I wonder if you could talk just as an actor about, this is devastating for actors right now.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, it is devastating for actors because Hollywood is completely shut down. Nobody's shooting. There's no auditions. So, and I kind of feel like, come on, I was on this great momentum in the fall. I was booking job after job after job, and then everything came to a screeching halt. But,
Yes.
but I'm just trying to make the most of this time because this isn't forever. This too shall pass. Obviously, the tricky part is we don't know how long it's going to last, and we might not get back to normal until we have a vaccination, and that's going to take time.
Yeah.
And, so I've just been trying to make the most of it. I've been writing the new show, and I missed so many movies in the theaters last year. So I've been going to Redbox and renting all the movies that I missed in 2019 and just catching up on those. And I luckily did get some financial assistance from unemployment and the Actors Fund because I did work as an actor last year. And I still have a job that I'm doing. I'm still delivering foods to have some extra cash there. I just don't want to be in any kind of rental debt when this is all said and done. And my lovely apartment that I have here with a roommate is expensive to rent. So,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, our landlord's not cutting us any kind of breaks. So,
Wow. I just am so struck by how amazing, honestly, Nancy, if somebody could say to us that our kids would someday be living in their own apartment and voicing concerns about, I want to make sure that I'm not in rent debt, living on their own, we would be ecstatic, would we not?
Absolutely.
It's like a thing devoutly to be wished. When do you think, when did you know that you were going to be somebody who was going to be able to live on your own? When was that inside you?
I mean, I knew from a young age that I wanted to be an entertainer. I don't have a backup plan. This is it for me. I'm going to do this till my grave, and I just knew. I just knew it's like, okay, I want to be in movies. I want to be in TV. I want to move to LA. I don't know a soul there, but once I get there, I'll figure it out.
So you always knew that you were going to be out and independent on your own. When did your mom know? When did your mom know and think it's okay for George to leave the house?
Well, my mom didn't have a problem with it. I mean, I'm very lucky to have two very supportive parents here. If I'm ever in any trouble financially, they are a phone call away. I try really hard to not abuse that privilege just because they've already done so much for me. So I try really hard to not abuse that privilege. And I did say to my mother that I wanted to go to college out here in California, and I did go to college out here in California. And my mother was okay with it because my mother was like, well, I have a brother who lives in San Diego. So if he's ever in any trouble, he can always go there. And it's California, not Mars. So
I love your mother.
My mother was very hands-on. She taught me right from wrong. And she wanted to make sure, she did push me to make sure that I could still be as much of a high functioning citizen of society that I possibly could be.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't going to coddle me. She was going to push me forward to be all that I could be.
Was it difficult for you to make the transition to independence and being on your own?
It was at first. I moved off my college dorms in 2010, and I was living on a friend's couch, and I didn't have a job.
Uh-huh.
And it was a little rough because that was when I got the harsh reality that life isn't a dorm room. I was a little overwhelmed by the fact that, oh, I'm moving into an apartment. Oh, I have to get furniture. Oh, I have to pay for gas and electric bills, and life's not a dorm room where they just supply everything for you when you move in. So I definitely
why can't life be an all-inclusive resort? Right? Wouldn't that be great?
So I definitely got that harsh reality at 21. And there were definitely days when I was ready to pack it up and either move back to my college dorm, or days when I was like, maybe I should just go home for a while and be with my parents and regroup. But because of my drive and my desire to do this industry, I toughed it out through the rough times.
Man, you're so inspirational, George. I have to ask you, like, who inspires you?
I mean, as an artist, I'm easily inspired by by art. So if I hear a really good song on the radio, or if there's a really good TV show, or if there's a really good movie that I watch, or even if there's some great theater that I see, I'm easily inspired to create. And obviously, being a character actor myself, I obviously look up to other character actors. I got Paul Dooley, a well-known character actor, the movie dad, and now movie grandpa, to play my grandpa in the movie. He came and saw my one-man show because I came and saw his 1 year prior, and I kept in touch with his assistant. And he came to see my show 1 year later, and we've been in touch ever since, socially. So when I got the call back for this role in Penciltown, I read the script, and I saw that I was going to have a grandpa in the movie. So I said to them, bold as brass in the callback, if you hire me for this, I could get you Paul Dooley. So I got the part, and then they made an offer to Paul Dooley's agent, and I called Fiona, his assistant, and said, "I'm begging Paul to do this." And at the wrap party, Paul and his wife, Winnie Holtzman, who wrote the book for Wicked and created a show called My So-Called Life, she came up to me and said, the minute Paul found out it was you, he was immediately eager to do this.
Wow.
How wonderful.
I loved My So-Called Life. I still remember that show. It was
You too. I was honored to have Winnie in my audience because I was a big fan of that show as well. So it was an honor to have the woman who created it in my audience, and that's Paul's wife.
We have viewers who've written in. One says, I love hearing from individuals like George and Kobe Bird. I want to share them with my K-3 students. I want them to see that anything is possible. And my husband wrote in and said, saw your scenes from NCIS. Great job, George.
Thank you.
And my husband's an actor, so he's fussy. So that's a compliment.
Yeah, I told Eric Christian Olsen, who was the tall guy with the blonde hair, in between takes. I told him, this is my first guest starring role, and he was like, "It is not. You're really good." So I was honored to hear that from him, and I had been following Eric's career for years. I had seen a lot of his movies, so I was really honored to hear that from him.
There is a core group, though, of individuals that are here in LA that are actors who happen to also identify themselves being somewhere on the spectrum. And, I remember when roles first started to come out, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And now it seems like there's more and more, but does it ever get contentious competing with, because I know a couple of people, I can think of one person in particular who was up for that role on the Pencil movie, that we have many guests that are actors that, yes, and you guys seem to tend to go up for the same kinds of roles. Does it get, contentious?
I try really hard to not let it get contentious. Like, you also know Alex Plank, and him and I.
That's what I was thinking.
Him and I have become friends in the past year, and my feeling is, and I get it, we're both in our 30s, we're both white, we both have Asperger's, we're both in the same category. So we are going to go out for a lot of the same jobs. But my feeling is, if I win, he wins. If he wins, I win. If one of us gets it, we all win. And I really hate how catty and competitive this industry can get. So my feeling is we should all be lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. And my feeling is, hey, if you're good to me, and if I'm fortunate enough to make it to the other side and get the massive success and fortune and fame as an actor, if I'm lucky enough to break through that glass ceiling and get to the other side, I will throw the rope back over for other people.
I know you will. And that's exactly the person that I was thinking of, because I know you guys have gone up for the same role a couple of times, and sometimes it's you and sometimes it's him. Yeah. And I got to say, yes, you described yourself both very well in that category, but you are both infinitely different flavors.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. I mean,
totally different flavors.
I jokingly said that to Gail once, our agent, because we have the same agent, and I was like, "Well, you now have the both of us because we're both white, we're both Asperger's, and we're both in our 30s." And he was like, "Yeah, but you're both still different in your,
Yes.
So,
absolutely."
But I still love Alex. He's become a friend, and
I love that.
And we actually just recently talked a couple of weeks ago because we're both obviously self-quarantining right now. So we'll occasionally text each other or call in on each other just to see how each other's doing. And
Wonderful.
I just want to keep that alliance with all the actors I come across with. I mean, whether you're on the spectrum or not. I mean, I try to keep that bond and alliance with every actor I meet.
Well, we're so proud of you, George. And Nancy, I've been hogging it. Is there anything you want to ask George?
I would like to know, given your path and some of the early struggles you have, what words of wisdom or inspiration would you say to people out there that want to do sort of follow the path you have chosen? What words of inspiration and encouragement would you give them?
This acting teacher I used to work with once said this to me, and it once said it to all of her students, and it struck me. And it was something that her acting teacher used to say: if you can do something else in your life, you should do it. But if you can't do anything else, then you need to do this. And you can't make it about money. You can't make it about fame. You have to make it about the work and the joy and the satisfaction. I'm trying to find the right word.
Satisfaction.
And the joy and the satisfaction that comes with the work. Because this industry that you're going into, it's going to go up and down. 1 minute you're going to be hot, you're going to be in demand, and the next minute it's going to be a dry spell. It's going to go up and down, and that happens to everybody at every level in the business. Whoopi took that job on The View as a moderator because she said, it came to me at a time when I couldn't get arrested. I couldn't get an acting job anywhere. So it's going to go up and down, and Whoopi's an EGOT, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. So it doesn't matter what level you're at. It's always going to go up and down with you, and you have to ride the wave. So if you can do something else, I would say do it. But if you can't, and that's where I'm in, I can't do anything else. This is what drives me to continue living my life, is my art and this industry, and wanting to contribute to the industry, wanting to do work that impacts other people. That's what keeps me going. So I would say, if you live, breathe, eat, sleep this, keep doing this. Do not give up. And also, I would also give these other two pearls of wisdom. Don't kill yourself trying to be successful in the industry, because I've learned over my 11 years, almost 12 years here in Los Angeles doing this industry, the minute I stopped killing myself trying to make a career happen, that's when stuff started happening, because I stopped killing myself over it. There was a period where I was going to my acting class 3 times a week. I was self-submitting on Actors Access, LA Casting, Now Casting every single day. I wasn't going home to visit my family except for once a year. I was too focused. So you have to take the time in your life to still enjoy life. And you have to take the moments to truly enjoy life, because we only have one of these, and we don't know what's waiting on the other side. This is not a dress rehearsal. So there has to be a balance where, yes, you're focused, yes, you're all about the work, but you also have to be all about your own life, whether you're partnered with somebody who you're sharing your life with romantically, or whether you have family that you want to make sure you visit as much as you can, especially in my case, because mine live on the other side of the nation. And the last thing I would want to say is, don't be afraid to be your 110% authentic self. For years, I didn't talk about my autism as an actor. I did not talk about it. But the minute I started to embrace it, that was when my whole life and my whole world and my whole career started to change, because I started to embrace it.
I got to say,
this is an industry where you want to stand out, not blend in. So the more you have, the better off and the better your chances are at making an impact in this industry. This is an industry where you have to be you, and you have to stand out.
And I got to say, George, I think you also did, I think, one of the most important things that an actor can do. You hired yourself by writing something for yourself and investing in it and producing it. And getting other producers to produce it. You hired yourself. And I remember years ago hearing Cameron Manheim talk. And when somebody said to her, you know, you are not the stereotypical face of a female in Hollywood. How did you get the success that you have? And she was, you know, she's still a big star, but she was like, you know, on everything at that point. And she said, well, you know, the truth is I got one job and I took that money and I hired myself. I wrote a one-woman show and I was clear that I wanted people to be able to see me in that one-woman show, to see the kind of, because she said she was going on auditions and she wasn't getting anywhere. But so she hired herself, and I saw you do that. You hired yourself and you continue to hire yourself. And I think there's something about that affirmation and that confidence that the rest of the world sees and goes, ah, that's a true talent. And they recognize it in themselves first.
And how I got the inspiration to do my one-man show was actually from Whoopi. I was watching an episode of Oprah's Masterclass, and Whoopi was going through the same struggles I was going through as an actor, which is I wasn't getting any jobs, I wasn't getting hired, but I still wanted to show people what I could do as an actor. So that was when I started working on my one-man show, because Whoopi did her one-woman show that showed all the different characters she could do. And then Mike Nichols saw it, and then he put it on Broadway, and then Steven Spielberg saw it and fell in love with her and put her in The Color Purple, and the rest is history. And I got to tell that to Whoopi in person when I met her. And
did she love that?
Yes, and I even got to follow up a couple months later in Vegas, and I got to give her a hug on stage during her Q&A portion of the show. So that was
exciting.
Cool. I do have Whoopi Goldberg to thank, because Whoopi is another one like Cameron Manheim who doesn't fit into the stereotype of what Hollywood wants you to be. And when I started doing my one-man show at first in 2017, I was telling people, well, I figured if Hollywood isn't going to give me a job, then I'm going to make myself a job.
Yep. Now I got to ask you, and then we're running out of time, but do you ever, and I hope I know the answer to this, I hope, do you get the opportunity to audition for roles in TV and film that don't have anything to do with autism?
Well, when I was self-submitting for projects in Actors Access and LA Casting and Now Casting, I was playing more neurotypical people than atypical people, because it was student films, it was short films, it was a bunch of, you know, it was a bunch of those kind of projects that I was self-submitting for, and most of them didn't have pay. You would just do it for a credit, a copy, and a meal. And I was trying to build up a reel in Hollywood. I haven't had the chance yet, because both of the roles I did in NCIS Los Angeles and Penciltown were both autistic roles. I haven't had the chance yet to play a neurotypical role in the Hollywood sphere just yet. And I did have a friend who did say to me, well, you don't want to get pigeonholed. And I was like, well, yes, I don't want to get pigeonholed. That's true. But I also have to get known first. And I am willing to be the best autistic guy Hollywood's ever seen if that gets me known. And then once I'm known, then I can do whatever I want.
I like that plan.
I mean,
George, where can people follow you for more information?
I mean, just one last quick thing.
Okay.
Sally Field was Gidget and the Flying Nun first, before she was Norma Ray, before she was Mama Gump, before she was Mary Todd Lincoln. You have to start somewhere first.
Absolutely.
Good advice. Very good advice.
Yeah,
we're out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Shannon asked.
I am on Twitter and Instagram at George F. Steeves, GeorgefSteeves. I'm on Facebook, just myself, George Steeves, and I'm a friend of Shannon's on Facebook, so I'm sure you can find me through Shannon's friends list. And just the last thing I wanted to say is the last 2 appearances I did on Autism Live, I was promoting the show and I was promoting the fundraiser to go to Edinburgh and upcoming appearances in New York and LA. So now, since we're all in self-quarantine here, if you want to watch my one-man show yourself in the pleasure of your own home, that is now available online for free. Go to www.vimeo.com/magic 8ball. So vimeo.com/magic8ball, the number 8. It's not written out in letter form. So /magic8ball. There's 3 videos on there, and it's called Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Asperger's, written and performed by George Steeves. And you can watch the whole show for free in 1 hour. You'll go on quite the emotional roller coaster ride, and you'll get to experience with me everything I went through.
Is there a password on Vimeo, or it's available?
It's completely available and open. You just go on vimeo.com/magic8ball. There's 3 videos, and it's right there available to watch in your own home.
Yay.
Great.
Thank you, George. We adore you.
Thank you for joining us today, George. You've been a delightful guest. We love having you.
I love being here.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.